everybody. Welcome to Majority Rules. This is Season 2, Episode 7. This is a podcast about Mizzou Athletics Majority, which is Olympic sports athletes. Oh my God, I already can't talk. Today, we are mainly in postseason mode, as most of our covered sports are in the most exciting time of the season. So to capitalize on that, when we go around and introduce ourselves, the sports we cover, please also mention your most favorite postseason in all of sports. It does not have to be your own sport, whatever you want. Let's start with Dylan.
Hi,
Surprise!
everyone. Hi, my name is Dylan Heinrich. I am the Rock M women's basketball, volleyball, and then part of the softball crew. Very excited for the postseason ahead. My favorite postseason tournament is anything related to do with basketball. So obviously you got the men's and the women's NCAA tournament. You have the men's NIT, the women's NIT, the WBIT, which we'll talk about later. There's so much single elimination postseason hoops. I'm hyped.
Colin.
Yep, I'm Colin. Currently covering wrestling, did soccer in the fall, and part-time volleyball. And then I gotta agree with Dylan. I think March Madness on both sides is my favorite. I feel like it's one of the few ones where you can go in like completely blind and still be thoroughly entertained.
Matthew.
Hey everybody, I'm Matthew Gustafson, the former volleyball, wrestling, and baseball beat writer and current men's basketball and football beat writer, one of the two for Rock M Nation. And my favorite postseason event is probably the one that just started about an hour ago, which is March Madness.
So much variety in this group. And Henry.
I'm Henry Chappell. I'm currently the Rock M Nation baseball writer, and just for the sake of variety, even though my favorite is March Madness, I'll go with the NHL playoffs because that, I think, ranks in a close second for me in relation to March Madness because I think it's a very exciting time of year, and it goes on for so long, with each series being that best-of-7 format. So I'll say that one's my favorite for the variety's sake.
And then my name is Karen Steger. I am the Olympic sports manager at Rock M Nation. I am also softball and gymnastics beat writer and a poor swim writer, though we are going to talk about it today. And you'd think that I would have thought about an answer to this. I think I'm just going to say March Madness. Also, I am obsessed with it. My bracket will be on paper and attached to my body for the next month. I got to carry it with me. None of that. It'll be on my phone too, but there's something weird about just taking a highlighter or crossing out and finding out what I inevitably got all very wrong. Yeah, I just love it. We have a bracket for my family and friends, and then the dean's office has a bracket, and then the J School as a whole, faculty and staff has a bracket too. I think this year I'm going to try to do everything actually the same. Like last year I tried to do some nonsense where I did different ones for each one, and then I was like, I can't even keep track of what's going on. So I think I'm just going to keep them all the same this time. But yes, both men's and women's basketball, super excited.
And we've got a Rock M Nation bracket challenge going on right now too, right?
Oh yeah, in that. Oh my God. I'm in 4 brackets. Oh my God.
And I think
if you want to join the Rock
I think
M
that's
bracket,
over at the main website over at Rock M.
Yeah. And I already had joined that group and I already forgot about it. Oh boy. So on today's show, we are going to start with all of the postseason sports. So we'll be covering wrestling, track with a video update from our friend Sophie, who is not with us tonight, women's basketball, swim and dive, gymnastics, and then we'll finish with some soccer, baseball, and softball updates. So first up, Wrestling with Colin. It is NCAA time. Tell us all about it.
Yes, we are finally here. Made it through Tulsa in the Big 12 championships. Now heading to Cleveland for the national championships. Mizzou has 6 qualifiers for the second straight season. Tournament starts Thursday. We'll go through Saturday. And the 6 qualifiers are Mac Mauger at 125, Gage Walker at 133, Cam Steed at 174, Aiden Sinclair at 184, Evan Bates at 197, and Jared Stoner at 285. So a good run there in the top half of the weight class. And I got to mention the snubs, as I'm calling them right now, that didn't make it for Mizzou. Josh Edmond, Teague Travis, and Max Mayfield. All 3 were consistently in the top 33 rankings throughout the regular season, but poor performances at Big 12s. I wouldn't say deservingly left them out, but it did not help their case. And all 3 have also exhausted eligibility, so it's disappointing to see their careers end in that way. But getting back to the wrestlers that we will see wrestle this weekend, I'll just start from the bottom up. Mauger, he's the 32 seed. He got an at-large bid, which means he'll have to wrestle in a play-in match to get into the main bracket. And his
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's just the 33 and 32 seed will play or wrestle to then get rewarded with the 1 seed in the tournament, and that is Luke Lillidahl from Penn State. So it's a tough draw for his first ever qualification, and there is a good chance that he'll go 0-2 and get eliminated from the tournament, but he set such a strong precedent for seasons to come. And then moving up to 133 with Walker, he is the 19 seed after placing 5th at Big 12s in a shocker. He really came on strong after Cade Moore got injured for the season, and he'll face 14-seeded Ethan Bergink out of Army in the first round. I honestly like the upset there. Walker really came on strong to end the season, and he's had his fair share of upsets already. But then I do see him falling in the second round. And placement isn't likely for him, but he should make it to Friday in the consolation bracket. And then into someone who could be seen as a title contender, Steed won this 174-pound title at Big 12s, and that gave him the 7 seed for nationals. He took 7th place last season. I have him improving, but just slightly. I think he takes 5th this season. He's in the side of the bracket with the 2 seed Simon Ruiz, and he'll likely meet him in the quarterfinals, and that's where I see him getting knocked into the consolation bracket, where I think then he'll go undefeated to 5th place. And then the true undisputed title contender for Mizzou, Sinclair at 184. He's the 2 seed after winning the 184-pound title at Big 12s. And I do think he has a shot at getting the title, but his path is not easy at all, starting from the quarterfinals on. And so assuming the higher seeds will win in the brackets, he'll have to go through 7-seed Angelo Ferrari from Iowa, and that's the only wrestler that Sinclair has lost to this season. Granted, that was at the very beginning of the season, so it's just different now, obviously. And then in the semifinal, he'd have to face Max McAnally from Minnesota, who he's already beaten this season, and then finally Rocco Welsh in the championship, who is the 1 seed. Mizzou hasn't had a national championship since Keegan O'Toole in 2023. Sinclair's got the best shot. And then we'll move to Bates here at 197. He really struggled at Big 12. So he went 0-2 against 2 lower seeds. He really, his seed dropped dramatically from what he was during the regular season. He's the 25 seed with an at-large bid, and he'll wrestle 8 seed DJ Parker out of Oklahoma, who beat him by a major decision less than a month ago. So I see him losing again there and getting knocked into the consolation bracket. He definitely has the ability to outperform his seeding. I like him winning at least 2 matches in the consolation bracket, but I don't see him going any further than that. And then finally, there's Stoner. He's a first-time qualifier after taking 5th place at Big 12s, and he still only got the 28 seed. He did not perform amazingly during the regular season, and I think he's another guy who could be out of the tournament after 2 matches. In the offseason, he'll definitely need to put on more weight to compete with those top-ranked heavyweights. But overall, National should be fun when you've got 2 wrestlers like Steed and Sinclair who could potentially go as far as a title match. And it'll be nice to see how the rest of the qualifiers kind of complement those 2.
Nice.
Something to look
Matthew,
for.
I
with...
will.
Oop,
I was
sorry.
just going to ask you a question. As
Go
someone who
ahead.
had covered the wrestling team previously, I was going to ask you how how you felt about the improvement in like Steed, for instance, like going from
Yeah,
last year to this year.
I think that with Steed, and that's what I was actually going to jump in and talk about. He's one to look for because he put on a show last year at the NCAA championships. He won the Gararian Award for the most pins in the smallest amount of time. And that was how he ended up. He got a pin to win seventh, to get that seventh place finish at the NCAA championships. Feels like he's also having some of it, probably his best wrestling of the season. Sinclair, this is what we saw last year. We saw the promise last year, but they held him back. They wanted to redshirt him because they knew just how good he could be, and we're seeing that. Mizzou, they aren't necessarily what they had been in previous years. Obviously, the last couple of years have been down years comparative to some of the highs that the program has seen. But no matter what, they've basically always had that one guy, that one wrestler who can be a national champion. And there's no doubt for the next 3 years, barring something shocking, barring a transfer, Aiden Sinclair is that guy. I believe he'll win a national championship, if not multiple, by the time that he is done in Columbia. The question is, can he get it as a redshirt freshman? Rocco Welsh, this is not a new situation for him. He's the veteran, he's experienced, and Sinclair is going to have the much tougher path. Can he battle past that to win that national title, or is he going to go into next year looking for number one?
The interesting thing that I always come back to with Sinclair is like from the media availability when they did the thing with all of the different sports, I loved how he talked about how he wanted to wrestle a tough schedule to prepare himself for something like this. And I like that he didn't want it to be easy. He wanted to push himself. I think that will, if it doesn't result in a national title this year, I really feel like at some point it will work out for him. Also, I just really enjoyed hearing him talk. That's all I have to say about wrestling because I don't really understand it.
And I mean, he's also working with somebody, first year assistant, Keegan O'Toole. He's been there. He's won 2 of them. He could have won 4 of them. Made it to the national title match last year, wrestling on a torn ACL. I truly believe if it wasn't for that injury, he would have coasted through that national championship. O'Toole, as good, as impressive as 2 national titles are, that is not a true measure of just how good a wrestler he was and how good he was at the NCAA championships. So having somebody in your corner that's been there, that's won it, and has seen some of those guys during his collegiate career to guide you is going to be invaluable for him. And I think that's going to really give him a leg up over some of his competitors.
And Colin, I just have to commend you on your coverage. I know that we kind of threw you into it last minute without having ever covered wrestling before, and I think you've done a great job. 2 thumbs up.
I really appreciate that. I've had a good time learning the sport. It's definitely been one of the, I'd say, more fun sports to cover from just like an interview perspective, because I feel like the wrestlers are they're more real, I guess, than other sports, and that's fun to see.
Yeah.
So I've enjoyed it.
Good. So we are at the point now where we will get an update from Sophie for track and field. I gotta tell you guys, broke my soul to see Jonathan Serums win another freaking national title, but at a different school. Out at Texas Tech, wins another title, and another former Tiger, Sterling Scott, I think, finished 11th. He's at Ole Miss now. Now, I understand him leaving. Like, his dad's at that school. Like, that makes sense. And then I also think Alicia Burnett, another former Tiger. I think she had exhausted her eligibility, so I think she was like a grad transfer. She also won a title, 60 meters, maybe? A sprint, it was. So, oh well. But Sophie is probably talking to us about Sam Ennis's performance, so.
Hey everyone, my name is Sophie Silvers and I cover Mizzou track and field and help a bit when I can with Henry and Matthew covering Mizzou baseball. My favorite postseason in all of sports is the World Series because I grew up in Los Angeles and I'm a really big Dodger fan. The indoor season for Mizzou track and field just ended with senior Sam Ines being named All-American after his 22.7 meter throw at the NCAA Indoor Championship. Also, Kobe Walker ran for his Team Australia in the 2026 FISU World University Championships, where she placed 16th overall. The outdoor season is coming in fast with the Yellow Jacket Invitational in Atlanta, Georgia, on Friday and Saturday, March 20th through the 21st. I'll be speaking with assistant coach Andreasen on Wednesday in the afternoon to go over Mizzou sprinters and multi-events on the team and hopefully get insight onto what player and contributor she's looking forward to watching during the outdoor season. Unfortunately, there will not be any more home meets this season, so they will all be on the road, but it will be interesting to see how they compete with the entire outdoor season in different places around the U.S. and not on their very home slate in Columbia.
Thank you, Sophie. Moving on to women's basketball. Just when you thought the Tiger season was done, they are postseason bound. They are the number 4 seed in the WBIT, which is what exactly? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm excited. We got some postseason basketball for women's basketball. This is the first time in 3 years since they made the postseason. Last time it was the WNIT, so that NCAA drought continues, but hopefully not for long. This is a major step in the right direction. Talk a little bit about the WBIT. It's different to the WNIT because that was kind of its own independent company and independently run. This is an NCAA sponsored event that was primarily put together to kind of cut down on costs and has now become the primary secondary basketball tournament after the NCAAs. And so they do it's 32 teams. They do campus sites for the first 3 rounds. And then the semifinals and final have previously been held in Indianapolis. Now they're moving them to Wichita, which, if Mizzou can make it that far, is quite the home field advantage. But first, they have to get through Seton Hall. Mizzou, we talked about, is the 4 seed, which would mean they would technically be hosting. But since the Missouri high schools, MISHA, does their state finals in Columbia every year, the facility was already booked out for finals/semifinal matchups throughout the weekend, which is a shame. I would have loved if they played like at Rockbridge High School or something, or played at Columbia College. Get the game in Columbia. But we're going to Jersey. They will play on Thursday. Seton Hall is a good team. They finished 19-12. They were number 3 in the Big East. Didn't compete with UConn or even a good Villanova team, but put themselves in a position that even though they didn't receive an at-large, they've got a solid resume, got wins over teams like Auburn and Wazoo in the non-con, teams like Marquette, who are good in the Big East. So it'll definitely be a very competitive game. I was just doing some preview stuff for Seton Hall earlier. There's not a lot of players that really stick out on their roster. There's just 4 or 5 players that are really darn good. So it's not about slowing down one person. It's just kind of disrupting the offensive rhythm while kind of getting your own shots up. Those are some of my early takeaways. Oh, Karen, you're muted.
Henry, do you have anything to add about women's basketball?
I mean, I think for this season,
you cover so many sports. It's hard
yeah,
for you to keep track of all of them, I imagine.
I think, but yeah, kind of similar to what Dylan said. I think even though the drought for the NCAA tournament still carries on, I think the fact they played their first, postseason game in a couple seasons, I think it's their first one since 2023. Definitely a step in the right direction. It's just, it is kind of a shame that even though they are the higher seed, they're not able to host it just due to things outside of their control. But I think the more interesting part that we probably get into is just how does this, regardless of result, how does this kind of affect, like if they make a bigger run, I think it could have an effect on this, but where, more interesting part for me is where some of these players could potentially go or stay, and if they trust in the, what Kelly Harper's been doing and what she's going to do to continue moving forward. I think there are a number of players on the roster that are very interesting cases in which you don't, I guess from an outside perspective, it's kind of hard to tell where they're going to go after the season's over. But, 16-16 season and, your first postseason game in a couple of years, I think that really shouldn't be seen as anything but a success, especially with how good, we've talked about before about how good and how loaded that the SEC was the whole season.
Mm-hmm. How many teams did they have in the tournament? 10?
I know it was 10 on the men's side. I'll have to check and get back to you on
8,
that.
maybe.
But
I can't remember.
I
It was a
think-
lot.
I think it's either 10 or 11. It's up there. So it was, again, the SEC was absolutely stacked. I'm kind of surprised they got a bid because teams like Florida and Mississippi State finished ahead of them in the SEC, but I'm guessing declined their bids to the WBIT. I know Florida just wanted to run a coaching change, so that makes sense. Mississippi State was kind of a lock for the tournament, and they dropped off. So it kind of opened more of that door for Mizzou, which I think is really good. I think they're a team that's definitely worthy of playing in this tournament. I definitely think they could, and they should be the favorite to beat Seton Hall. It's one that's pretty 50-50. That's why it's a 4-5 matchup. I think they would have to take on BYU in the next round, who I think is another team they could beat, but I think there's a chance for them to kind of make a deeper run. When we talk about transfers and stuff, I think there's a lot to get into there. We'll definitely talk about it more in future pods. Obviously, everything happens really fast now. I can think of some potential people, like either ones who are older and looking for a bigger role, or some who are part of the older regime, originally recruited by Princeton, who haven't quite found success in this new role. Someone who's again struggled with injuries and might be looking for just a change of scenery. I think these are all possible, but I feel pretty good about them locking down Shannon Dowell and Grace Slaughter, especially your top two who are returning for your senior season. They might get bigger offers to play somewhere else, but I think that the commitment that Kelly Harper has put, especially into those two talents and the support they've built around the staff, those are your 1 and 2 options. Those are your leaders for next year. And so I feel pretty good about them not going anywhere. As of people coming in, the big thing that they're going to need is a forward, a center. This has been no surprise. We've been talking about this for years. Jordana Reisman was very good, but she was only here 1 year. And we saw even at 6'3", you're kind of small in the SEC, which is crazy. So we're starting to see more and more names enter the transfer portal. So some of those players who either need a change or who were at a mid-major and put up ridiculous numbers could be a perfect fit for them. We'll talk more about that later. As much as I love Hannah Linthicum, I don't think she has starting SEC big potential, even though I see her coming in off the bench for some big minutes. Other than that, you got a lot of good freshmen. You got a lot of players who are experienced, a lot of players entering their senior season. I don't think they're going to have to go nowhere near as depth in the portal as they did the year before. So you're looking at a class of 1, 2, maybe 3, depends on who transfers out, but definitely not like, I think it was 6 or 7 last year, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think we're getting anything that big.
Well, and she's bringing in 5 freshmen. So, I mean, like, technically there isn't any room on the roster unless somebody leaves. But, like, we should probably just table this conversation for a later date. Let's see how they do in the postseason first and see if any movement happens. For some reason, I'm trying to think of Kelly's time at Tennessee, and I don't think that she had a lot of I don't think that a lot of people portaled on her team. I think, if I remember correctly, like, people tended to stick around, This is Kelly freaking Harper. Like, she's
I,
somebody.
I
You
will
want to
also
play
say,
for
like,
her.
just in the portal landscape, some of your great coaches, even like your Don Staley's, Kim Mulkey's, people are going to transfer out. But again,
Okay. Good
I mean,
coach.
good
Questionable human.
coach. I think I wouldn't be shocked if we see some people transfer out just because of how the way it is nowadays. But I don't think there's anything systemic or any sort of culture issues that are leading to large turnover within the team. That's just what I've observed.
I agree with that. All right. That will be all for women's basketball. Thank you. I'm going to do my check-in for swimming and diving, a team that I made sure I retweeted on social media every time I saw something. But as for my reporting, I think I only wrote 2 things about them this season. Sorry, Coach Grievers. I ran out of time in my life. So, despite not writing about it, I really have been paying attention to how they're doing. And diving, guys, diving school? Maybe. Because Mizzou Diving had a very strong showing at the Zone D diving meet, which is the qualification meet for the NCAA championships. The way that things were different this year was that at SECs, if you placed in the top, I should know this, but I can't remember what it is. I know it's at least the top 4 because the swimmer I'm going to talk about got an automatic qualification and he placed 4th. If you place in a top number in your conference, you automatically get a bid to the NCAAs. So Mizzou did well at the SEC championships and diving. Some divers got automatic bids for that. And then also there were some swimmers that did well too, but hold on a second. I'm getting off track. So at the Zone D diving meet, I wrote this down and I still can't even read it. At the Zone D diving meet, they had 10 separate qualifications for the NCAA championships from that meet, which is really cool. And if you have been reading my work for a long time, I was super concerned about with this revenue share and the roster cuts and all that crap that the divers were going to be left out. Turns out that is where Mizzou has realized that is where they can pick up some points at the NCAA championships. Great on them. So first up, the women's NCAA championships are this week, Wednesday through Saturday at Georgia Tech. Carolina Bank and Zara Zalin, also, that's a really cool name, will both compete in the 100 breaststroke on Thursday. Lena will also swim the 200 breast on Friday, and Zalin will swim in the 100 free on Saturday. They also qualified a 200 medley relay team. These were, I don't think any of these were automatic qualifiers from SECs because I didn't read that any of them were automatic qualifiers. So this just means that their times were fast enough through the standard that they would place in the top 32. And so they received bids to go. So they also have a 200 medley relay team that will be swimming on Wednesday. That includes freshman Libby Backer, Zara Zalin, Katie Kuhn, and Kylie Sullivan, and then Paige Straley is the alternate. And then they also have a 200 free relay team that will be swimming on Thursday. Though on MU Tigers, it doesn't say who actually is on that relay. It's some combination of these 6 people that I listed. If I had to guess just based on their 50 free times, Zalin and Kuhn are the fastest, and then I would say probably Sullivan and Striley because I don't know Libby Backer as being a freestyler. I could be wrong on that. And on my time spreadsheet that I was keeping up with, I never did monitor the relays. So, whoops. Diving will be represented by Megan Jolly, who will be doing the 3-meter springboard on Friday. And then they have 3 people in platform. That would be Giselle Eicherman, Greg Gorchuk, Olivia Liddell, and Mia Henniger, who will compete on platform on Saturday. I will say Giselle is new this year, but the other 3 were on the team last year. They did not make NCAAs last year, so improvement. Love to see it. The men's meet will be the following weekend, March 25th through 28th, also at Georgia Tech. Luke Niebrick will swim the 1500 free and the 100 fly. Jan Zubik will swim the 200 fly and both backstroke events. And then the men will also compete in the 200 medley, 400 medley, and 200 free relays. A couple things from SECs. So Luke Niebrick finished 4th in the 50 at SECs. Incredible. Fastest time Mizzou history, like 1874. That's really good. He is 12th nationally. It's been a while since Mizzou has had a sprinter ranked that high in the country. He is also 20th in the 100 free. And then Jan Zubik broke the school record in the 200 fly at the Mizzou qualifier earlier this month. He is ranked 23rd nationally. And then the 200 free relay team of Niebrick, Darden Tate, Ethan Vance, and Francois Malherbe set a school record. I think that might have been at the Mizzou qualifier too. They finished 11th. That might have been at SECs actually. And then other relays, Quinlan Gould, who is a transfer. I believe he'll be swimming backstroke in the medley relays, and that Zubik will likely swim the fly leg in the medley relays, I'm guessing. So it appears that Coach Matthew Grievers's whole plan of really prepping for just not even really worrying about SEC's performance and going straight into NCAAs, seems like it worked out. It's working for him, so that's pretty awesome. Excited to see how they do moving forward. And a lot of those people are younger. Like Luke Niebrick's only a sophomore. Ethan Vance is a sophomore. I think Francois is a sophomore as well. Like, it's a younger team. So to see people competing that well, setting school records and things like that, good to see. Yay, swimming. Moving on. Gymnastics. Gymnastics. Gymnastics! The regular season is over. Tigers have wrapped up a 500 season in the SEC. They were 4-4, which is very good considering the top 4 teams in the Road to Nationals rankings are all SEC teams. Every team in the SEC is ranked in the top 20. 7 of 9 are ranked in the top 10. So yeah, good gymnastics in the SEC. So I will touch a bit on the SEC championships in a minute, but first I will say, so this last meet, they went to Auburn. They got their first W ever on the Plains. I know, like, we don't care about wins and losses, but, you know, that's cool. Did their first win ever. They also scored their highest road score of the season, a 197.325. Ideally, I would have liked for it to have been even higher than that. But if they had gone over 197.5, it would have been wiped out anyway because NQS takes out the high and the low score. So it would have been like, poof, it doesn't exist anyway. So I'll take the 197.325, especially because the Tigers are fighting some injuries on beam. 2 out of their 6 regular rotation members are currently out. Amy Weir's been out for a couple weeks with an injury, though her dad told me that there is no way in hell she's not participating in SEC. So he said he's tough. She is tougher than his wrestlers because he's a wrestling coach. So go Amy. And Addie Lawrence also had been out with a little bit of an issue. Sounds like she is expected to be back as well. They both seem to be in very good spirits at the meet. So I was a little worried about Beam going into this last meet with 2 mainstays out of the lineup. I even adjusted my predictions for the meet, thinking that it would be one of their lower scores. They outdid my predictions, so I'm so smart, I guess. So it was good to see that a season high tying through 49.325 on vault despite no sticks at all. The last time they got the 49.325, I'm pretty sure they had 1 or 2 sticks. So that they're tying their highest score of the season with no sticks. Pretty awesome. Also, like, if you tune into the meet, their hops back were much more controlled. They weren't like crazy. Like they've reined in the power a little bit. So like Hannah Horton, for example, got a 9.9. She had not had a 9.9 in since like week 3, I think. So it had been a bit, but her hop was much more smaller. Like she gets so much air and so much distance, and she's so powerful that it's hard for her to rein it in, I think. But she's figured out because she had a 9.9, so that was amazing. I also want to call out the bars rotation, which was super solid. They had, out of the 7 people that competed, I think they had 5 sticks. One of those was an exhibition, but still, a stick is a stick. It was great to see freshman Kamara Eccles get back on track. She had like 3 weeks, I think, where she kind of had some issues here and there, but she got right back to it. She had a 9.925 in the anchor spot. That's like her second best score of the year. Really good to see from her, see her back on track. She also had a really good vault. Can't wait till next season when she has a 10.0 start value vault, because she is the prettiest 995 vault I've ever seen in my life. And also with Hannah Horton, she had a 9.9 also on floor that was ridiculously underscored. If you tune into the meet, she was making so much eye contact with the cameras. It was insane, and it was just like, just give me the better score. Like, it was like she was just daring them to give her a bad score. She looked unreal, and to only get a 9.9 on that routine, blasphemy. Also will say Olivia Kelly. She had a couple of issues on beam as well recently with connections and the judges not knowing how to do their jobs properly. And she had a 9.9 again, which was like her 8th of her career or something like that. And she's only a sophomore. So that was pretty awesome. Overall, the Tigers had 9.9 scores, as well as 3 season high scores or season high tying scores. It doesn't seem like a lot, but several more of them also got like their second best scores of the season and were like very close. So That was awesome. Matthew or Henry, were either of you able to watch the meet?
I was.
Yeah,
Do you
unfortunately,
have anything to
at
say?
unfortunately, I was at Taylor in the midst of
Oh,
a
you were.
that was the midst of the light delay that happened. So conveniently against Auburn as well. Um, that was a pretty. We can get into that later, but yeah, Matt, you can go ahead and give your more detailed analysis.
Yeah, overall, I think mostly positives. Vault was becoming a bit of a concern, I feel like, over the past few weeks, and they took a big step in the right direction with that. Obviously, a higher score there. And then bars. It had been a question mark for most of the season, and they've really turned it into a strength over the last couple of meets. Obviously, a bit of a down meet for floor, probably their worst floor performance of the
Really
year.
weird. It was a weird floor.
Yeah, which I'm not too concerned about. I don't know if it was just an off night, if there was something off with the floor itself, or whatever the deal was, but they've been so consistently good on that event that I don't think it's going to be a lingering issue. So,
Yeah.
taking that concern out, having good performances on vault and bars, and then continuing to perform the way they have on beam, I think sets them up fairly well. Looking at the national rankings right now, I think that it's a big opportunity for the SEC championships. The NQS between Arkansas and Mizzou is separated by not a tenth, not a hundredth, by 1/1000th, which is ridiculous. So if they can just get a little bit ahead of Arkansas during that SEC championship, that'll set them up really nicely, because with the way Stanford is performing right now, you do not want to face them during regionals.
Yeah.
So if they're the 7, 8, or 9 seed, then that should work out fairly well for them. I don't know if they can get to that 7 seed again with the way Stanford is right now, but if you can just get a little bit of an advantage over Arkansas heading into regional, I think that would work out really well. And if nothing else, just avoid dropping down to the 10 seed, because again, the one team you do not want to face with a trip to nationals on the line right now is the Stanford Cardinals.
Yeah, so if people haven't been paying attention, Stanford's been like on a tear lately. They went a 198 a couple weeks ago. They went a high 197. I mean, like they were, I think, ninth. They might have even been farther back than that in the rankings, and then they like hurdled everybody, and I think they went up to 7 now. Like,
Yeah, they're 7th right now.
yeah.
And then
So
Michigan is
yeah.
10th.
Yeah. So like when Nate Salzman and I talked about it, we're actually okay with 8th because that puts them with Oklahoma, and if the other teams stay put, I like the matchup where they are with that. I don't want to go in any region with Utah. Even if Utah went a 198 too, but they've also had like really crappy scores early on. I don't want to be anywhere near Utah. My post-traumatic stress gymnastics disorder will come back if that happens, because I don't see how any judge keeps them from missing their first national championship ever. So yep, don't want to be anywhere near them. Don't want to have anything to do with Stanford. So yeah. But we'll find out where they end up placed on Monday. They'll have a selection show. I'm sure I'll cover it. Before we get to regionals, though, the Tigers are heading to Tulsa. Tulsa, which the last I checked I was joking with my parents about like, people go warm places for spring break, the beach, hot temperatures. Last I checked over the weekend, it's supposed to be like 95 degrees in Tulsa on Sunday. Uh, Never mind the fact that it was like in the 20s on Monday, so that's normal. So it's going to feel quite unseasonably warm while I'm there. So yep, the Tigers are headed to Tulsa, a nice 5.5 hour drive away. Me and Ben from KCOU are going to be there to represent the Mizzou contingent for Rock M and KCOU, I guess, too. We're pretty excited. While the Tigers will be technically in this standings, like it's separated into two sections. Obviously last year Mizzou made the evening session with the top four teams in the conference. They're seventh in the conference this time, with Arkansas getting right over them. So they will not be in the later session. They will be in the afternoon session, which starts at like 2 or 3 o'clock, I think. I should check on that. And they will face off against 5 seed Georgia, who's number 6 nationally, is 6 seed Arkansas, is number 8 nationally, 8 seed Auburn, who's number 16th nationally, and 9 seed Kentucky, who's number 19 nationally. Mizzou's a 7 seed, and they are ranked number 9 nationally. I will say, if they keep up their current rankings, we think, me and Olivia Kella's mom anyway figured this out. We think this will be the first season in Mizzou history in which they spend the entire season ranked in the top 10 on all of their events. I went back as far as 2019 and looked at where they had fallen, and usually they'd have at least one event that was like up there, 12th or higher. But this season, the entire season, everything has been, they're 10th on 3 events right now and 7th on floor. If they hold that together or get better, then after this weekend, we could very possibly say that this is the first time in the program history where they have ended the season with top 10 on every single event. As for some SEC predictions, where do they finish in their session? I honestly think it's going to be a battle between Mizzou and Georgia. Georgia has been doing incredibly well, even with their star Lily Smith out. Their freshmen have been doing awesome. I think it'll be a battle between Mizzou and Georgia. I think Mizzou is going to end up 5th or 6th, knowing the scoring discrepancies, where they tend to save some of the higher scores for the later session. That's not fair, by the way, but it happens. Barring something weird, I'm not sure I see any of those top 4 teams really going outside of the top 4, though Alabama has been on a slide the last 2 weeks, so there's some potential there. I'm just really excited for my first postseason meet, officially credentialed. Yeah. Henry, do you have anything you want to add about gymnastics?
Yeah, I think that
In your final season covering gymnastics?
Yeah, I mean, I think the final kind of takeaway I had was that I definitely, like, the last meeting definitely showed why, that Coach Welker definitely talked high of Eccles before the season started. I think he predicted that she'd be one of the best on bars in the SEC, and I think we finally saw like the biggest like flash in the pan of that in particular. And then again, I just think that I just go back to like the high standard that they've really kind of set for themselves in the past couple of years with that. Because the floor routine, I wouldn't even say was overly bad. It's just they've set such a high standard with it that it's off par for what, the extreme high level that we're really kind of used to seeing. But yeah, even though, wins and losses, I don't really take into account at all during a season to get, I guess, your first road victory at Auburn and then having, the highest road score of the year. I mean, there's not really, and that's with the floor struggles that they had. There's not really a much better way to go into postseason with
Yeah.
momentum like that.
Struggles.
Yeah. I mean, for them, it's a struggle, but that's just because of how good they've performed in that category for so long. So, yeah.
Right. And it wasn't even like crazy stuff. Like, I think Elise and Rayleigh's feet may have slid on their passes. So they got 9.825s. And I'm just like, ugh. But that's because, like, they've been showing they can score at minimum 9.875, at best 9.9, 9.925 and above. So we just come to accept more. Ayla had the strangest performance ever. That's not indicative of her performances. Obviously, I think that Hannah, obviously, I said already, was underscored. I mean, Kennedy got a 9.9, missing some 8. Kaya, I think she might have been underscored too. I think she had a 9.85, if I remember correctly. Yeah, she had a 9.85. Nate and I both thought that was underscored, because she didn't have any foot slides or anything like that. So I think her should have been higher. So if they would have actually been scored what I think at least Hannah and Kaya should have been scored, they would have been much closer to their actual like 49.5 range, and not the 49.3 that they got, that I'm just like, that's not good. But yeah, that's why I didn't even really mention it, because I think that it doesn't mean anything going forward. Like, it was kind of an off day. To have kind of an off day and still score 49.3 is like pretty insane. Also, Addie and Amy, please hurry back healthy. Okay. We'll talk about more next time with that. Baseball. Henry and Matthew, if you were paying attention to, the Tigers wrapped up their first SEC series against Auburn last weekend in Columbia. Henry, did anything weird happen? And
Nothing.
also, what did you like that you saw from the team and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean nothing. I mean nothing really sticks out except for a 95-minute delay when the lights just randomly decide to go out. And just wondering what is going to happen, because it came at. I mean, just getting into. I won't take too long with it, but just getting into that like briefly, it was really came at a weird time because it was right after Bob Terrell had hit like a 2-run homer for Auburn in like the 8th inning, and it was a big momentum swing in the game. And then right after that, the lights just went out for a very extended period of time. And that was kind of the biggest. And then right after that, the delay happened. So it came at a kind of an odd time. But I think that, that didn't really have too much an effect on what would have happened had the momentum kept going. Because at the time, Mizzou's offense was kind of struggled as equally as it had been pre-delay, and then I just think that didn't really help anything. But I guess getting into the positives first, I mean, the main positive for me by far is just the starting pitching, like across the whole series. When you had Pimentel, McDevitt, and Kellenbrink, I mean, those three only had 3 earned runs given up between the 3 of them total, and there just seems to be a much. I mean, and Matthew can also attest to this. Like, there just seems to be a much bigger optimism going into like an SEC series with around the team. Whereas last year there were just so many series that they'd go into, no matter home or away, and you just feel like they'd be sleepwalking into it. And they really just came out and showed throughout that they had something to prove. Like, before I kind of get into how much the offense really struggled, I just think there were multiple times where they dug themselves out of holes in games, especially Jace Voigt and Cam Durnan in game 2, and they were down 3-1. They each had 2 big hits that tied it up, and they almost nearly won it with Cam Benson, who also had a good series. I mean, he almost had a 3-run homer that I think would have been the loudest I'd heard Taylor Stadium and covering games there. I mean, the amount of noise that place was making with around 2,000 plus people in it was also really good to see. There definitely is more of an anticipation for this series. So those three pitchers definitely for me are the main positive. Now, I mean, offensively in the SEC, just scoring 5 runs across 3 games, not really sustainable if you're trying to get, a win in SEC play, let alone a series win. And then just the bullpen struggles in the high leverage spots. You're seeing kind of depth issues in the bullpen. Obviously, JD Dorman has started really well. He's done really well as a starter. This was kind of his first main blemish, but they did give up the big 2-run homer that I talked about in game 1. So, but that was his first relief appearance of the season. So I don't really put that solely on him. And then obviously game 2, I think Isaiah Salas came in, gave up the bases loaded walk that gave Auburn the lead. And game 3, PJ Green and Juan Villarreal were the 2 pitchers where they came in, and then the 7-run avalanche sort of happened. So Auburn's bullpen not really allowing, I think allowing 0 runs, and then Mizzou's allowing a combined 12. Granted, most of that was bulked up by the 7 runs they gave up in game 3. I just think that overall, especially with how the teams hit with runners in scoring position, that was kind of the main difference. There weren't too many fundamental errors besides maybe for the exception of Cerna getting thrown out third in the bottom of the 9th in game 2. There weren't really many that stood out, unlike last year where you felt like you could point to a lot of different things of why, the team was losing games and not competing essentially at all in SEC play.
Yeah, for 25 of 28 innings over that series, Mizzou baseball went toe-to-toe with a team that is expected to go to the College World Series.
Exactly.
At no point last year could you say that. I'm not sure the last time you could say that about any Mizzou baseball team. It's certainly been a while. This is a team that is completely different from the one just 1 year ago. And the prime example of that is game 2 in that series. Mizzou, back to the wall, finds a way to force extra innings. And even in game 1, they made a late game push, right? In both of those scenarios, last year, Mizzou completely collapses. I think the difference in that series was you had a team that has experienced success, that knows how to win, against a team that hasn't had that yet. And that's a process that takes time. I think that the Bats, a little bit concerning, but again, you are facing a really, really good team. I think that this week, where they're facing Kansas, where they're facing a Tennessee team that's good, but not as good as it's been the past couple of years, is going to be a better
And no
barometer.
Tony Vitello.
Yep. Is going to be a better barometer of what the offense could look like for the rest of the season. But again, we are seeing this is a completely different team. The pitching is so much better. I believe the hitting is significantly better despite the outcome of last weekend. And as a whole, this team seems to believe in itself, and it knows that it's a good group, which isn't something that I think they would have said last year. I think that they were obviously pretty discouraged by the end of the season. This is a group that seems to have a lot of fight, has a lot of belief, and the arrow, for the first time in what seems like a long time, is pointing up for Mizzou baseball.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the turnaround. Even if they did, I know that I think it was one of the morning commutes this week. It must have been Mondays, and Josh had written something about in regards to Henry's recap or something like that, and said something about that was rough or something like that. And I think the thing that I enjoyed the most about it is that a resident baseball fan, triple play, who is massive, knows everything about Mizzou, was just hey, it's not as simple as a loss. You have to take into account that Auburn is likely going to be in the College World Series. They went toe to toe, third game aside, but with a good team and didn't get blown out and like showed that they have some talent on their roster. So I think that that was nice to see.
Yeah. No, I mean, the only rough part really of the series from Mizzou was probably Tyler Macon. I mean, he was one of their lesser performing hitters, and he was he was benched for game 3, which was the first game of the year. I'm almost 100. I know it is the first game of the year that he hasn't started and hasn't played in at all. So that was probably really the only severe rough patch of the series. And I think something that I should have mentioned before was I think the only reason why Auburn had the 3-1 lead in game 2 was because of, I think it was Caden Pierre essentially just losing a foul ball or not a foul ball, a fly ball in the sun. And then that caused 2 runs to score. And then that is why Auburn was leading in the first place. And that also happened to Auburn earlier in the game. So I think it's just, I mean, the main takeaway for them, I think that's the main lesson that they would learn, I guess, from it. And they already knew this, I feel like, but just those small margins really can win games in the SEC when teams are this good, like number 6 Auburn coming into Mizzou, and that's really what can that win or lose you games. And I think coming out against Kansas, I mean, this Kansas pitching staff, I mean, the team ERA is 6.25. I mean, that's nowhere near what Auburn's pitching staff is capable of. So, especially that big of a rivalry game, I mean, for hitters like Macon in particular, that could be a huge opportunity to get some of the momentum back. And like, I think Carrick talked about it when I asked him why he'd been benched for the 3rd game. He was just saying that he essentially thought he needed that mental reset, because he really heavily emphasizes sounds odd, but not really overly trying when you get to the plate, just having a game plan before you get up there and then just executing it. And he just didn't really see that he was doing that. So that's why he decided to sit him for game 3. So players like him, that would be a huge reset opportunity, especially in a rivalry game like that. Because Caden Pierre, when we asked him about that, was saying, well, ultimately, we don't really like Kansas. So that's a big opportunity for all of them, especially him. He hit particularly well in the series too. So just to get some of that momentum that they feel like they might have lost from, I guess, getting swept by Auburn.
Awesome. Thank you. Moving on to softball, who also has their own rivalry game of sorts. Tomorrow they are playing a doubleheader against Illinois in Champaign. Before returning home for a home series against a 1-loss Alabama team. But before we get to that, softball, you guys, had a good weekend. They are coming off a 4-0 weekend on their bye week series, so like their off SEC weekend series. That's probably why they went 4-0, because they weren't playing against SEC teams. Anyway, but they had 2 wins against South Dakota, a win against Iowa State, and another win against Minnesota. So Dylan was there on Friday along with our missing in action friend True. Dylan, you have anything you want to say about the games on Friday? Whose performance really stuck out to you, and how nice was it to see some wins?
Yeah, don't look now. Mizzou softball's kind of hot. Obviously, we can talk levels of competition. We can talk about it being the bye week, South Dakota, even stretching back to the midweek against UT Martin. They've won 5 in a row, scoring 40 runs. So the bats are hot.
Yeah.
They're looking good. Obviously, you need to match that to the level of competition. Stefania Abrascato hit, I believe it was over 600 on the weekend. She was absurd, great as a catcher too. Abby Carr continues to be a two-way star. I am so excited to see her development as she's only a freshman. A bunch of the freshmen showed out. I remember key hits from players like Sydney Forrester and Addie Waits as well. Abby Hay had her moments, so it was definitely a joint effort. It felt like everyone through the lineup was at the very least having a productive at-bat. The only thing I guess I could say is you just are looking for some more consistent pitching, especially from your starters, especially Sierra Harrison, who I think has continued to struggle and kind of fill out her role this year. But overall, strong things ahead. This weekend, we'll start with Illinois. Illinois is a good team, and a doubleheader is always rough. Oh, bye, Henry. I think there's a lot of
This
good
happens
in
every
this.
week.
There's a lot of good on this Illinois roster, but if Mizzou wants to be in this postseason contention, they need both of them, even if it's on the road in a doubleheader. I would be shocked if we didn't see at least Abby Carr start one of those games, especially in the midweek. Then it's the ultimate test against Alabama, a team that I believe has only lost one game. It's either one or two. They're they're number 4 in Softball America. It's a tough team, but you've got them at home. These wins are not going to be easy to come by in the SEC. If you get one, that is more than enough to get you through the whole weekend. You got to put your effort into every single game and hopefully stick around long enough and get enough key hits to get that one win. So I think that's the major goal this weekend. Overall, I think things are trending in the right direction.
Even when, things were rough last season, Mizzou beat Oklahoma in a game. They beat Texas A&M. Was that the other one? I missed both of those games. I might have been bad luck. Who's to say? So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But back to the Saturday games, which I was at, which I actually got to sit in the press box with our old pal Quentin. That was fun to reminisce with him and cover softball with him again for the first time in a while. Got to see 2 more wins. Like Dylan already said, Stefania Abriscato. My God, she was on one. Just really, really great performance. When we talked to Larissa afterwards, we kind of asked her, how is this, how this happened? Because she was struggling early on. And she said that she just kind of broke things. I'm trying to scroll back to my story. She just kind of broke things down and was taking it one pitch at a time and really just not focusing so much on trying to pull the ball, just find a good pitch. And it worked out really well for her. I think she had 8 hits on the weekend. I think she had 8 RBIs, multiple doubles. She looked fantastic. I will stick up for Sierra Harrison a little bit because Larissa did talk about this. I thought that she pitched pretty well on... You have to remember that she also did the midweek. So she did the midweek, and then she also pitched on Friday, and then they tried to also throw her on Saturday. And Larissa said they just kind of look at her recovery a little bit because she just was a little tired. And so that's a lot of pitching in a short amount of time that I think that she's just not accustomed to right now. So, and the weather has been weird and, that kind of stuff just has an impact on people. So I really didn't, I thought that she did pretty well overall. Obviously, Abby Carr she gave up a home run, but then she struck out 5 million people after that, I feel like. Obviously that's an exaggeration, but I think she did strike out 3 or 4 more people after she gave up a 2-run home run. So they held it together, didn't give up big innings. That will be the path moving forward. We also talked to Abby Hay. I'm going to say Abby Carr. Abby Hay on Saturday. You guys, I just love Abby Hay. She is just a joy. She is always so complimentary of everybody on her team. She is so freaking smart about softball. Like, she said that before Sydney Forrester hit her home run on Saturday, because she hit several this weekend, that she said that she just kind of went up to her before and was just like giving her a pep talk and being like, just believe in yourself and we believe in you. Don't worry about the crowd. Don't worry about anything else. Just worry about you and your teammates. And then she said, like, when Sydney crossed the plate after she hit her home run, she was like, see, told you. And then I asked her a little bit about her being healthy again, since she was hurt last season. And you can just see like how much the team means to her. Just love her. Love that girl. So yeah, it was a good weekend, and now we're to Illinois tomorrow and then back to SEC play. SEC play from here on out. We'll see if they can scrape some wins. And I know that we've gone way over, but I also realized I forgot to ask Colin about soccer. So Colin, make it quick. Soccer.
I can
Spring
absolutely
season.
make it quick. There is only 4 games in Mizzou soccer's spring schedule starting this Thursday. Many of them are, it's like three match warm up to play Kansas next month in April is pretty much what it is. They'll play D2 Central Missouri, then Murray State, and then the reigning D3 national champions Wash U, St. Louis, and before playing a rivalry match with Kansas, who made it to the third round of the NCAA tournament last season. Like I said, those first 3 matches or so should get the team feeling more comfortable for that last match. And hopefully those 3 matches will at least, we'll see some development from that offense that was severely lacking last season. But the fun stuff that I did, so I did a spring schedule preview and projected depth chart. The fun side of things, obviously, the depth chart for it. So there's a lot of turnover on this roster, but there's holes to fill everywhere because it just didn't produce last season, especially in the midfield and forward area. So I'll be curious, starting out with those forwards, how South Florida transfer Michaela Hill performs. I think even though she didn't start much over at South Florida, she has more experience than really anyone in the room right now. At the very least, she should be that first forward off the bench. And then midfield, most returners of the 3 position groups there. But I'll be interested to see how Golan utilizes Petra Bandula and Riley Morse, incoming freshmen, early enrollees, see if they get any playing time there. And then the defense is where I have a new face starting in Wake Forest transfer Taryn Chance, now in the room. She'll likely play on the outside across from Shania Spriggs, who I have elevated into a starting position. And then Mia Yang and Morgan Metter will still be that elite center back duo that they are. This team's identity was in the defense last season, should stay the same coming into this one. And then lastly, the keeper rotation will need to be monitored because both Kate Phillips and Riley Wilkerson both decided to stay on the roster for now. Phillips played the majority of last season, but was benched in favor of Wilkerson in the final 2 matches of last season, and she looked really good. So we'll see how that the minute allocation works there. Spring season, it won't tell much at the end of the day, but it should at least establish the idea of a rotation going into the fall. The main thing I want to see, obviously, is can this offense connect passes, show good possession, and just get the ball in the back of the net. That's the most important thing.
My dad watched, I know I said this during the season too. My dad watched like all of the soccer games, and despite them not having the wins to show it, he really did think that this season was better than the previous season offensively for them. Like, he thought they just looked better,
I'd
in
agree with
his
that.
opinion.
I covered soccer freshman year at the Maneater too, so I know a little bit from season to season. But it was really just a lack of capitalization on really some solid passes. Like Emily Jarecki was a really nice assister. She couldn't find the back of the net very often, but she led the team in assists. And Golan kept, like, current theme of last season was just lack of ability to capitalize on those opportunities. So I guess we'll see what happens this spring if they can connect on some more of those plays.
They will come back to a nicely resurfaced field, which is why those spring games are in like Boone County or something like that. It's
Yeah, they're in
Missouri Soccer
Boonville.
Park.
They play one in St. Louis, and then they go to Lawrence for that Kansas game.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Colin. All right, if you've tuned in this far, congratulations. Thank you for spending your whole life with us. Sorry, we have lots to talk about, lots of postseason things. Didn't know we were going to have to be covering women's basketball to the extent that we did, but they made the postseason. There's a lot going on in Mizzou sports. So, thank you if you've made this far for following along. Read all of our content at rockmnation.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. It's a very busy time here with Diamond Sports in full swing, as well as with all this postseason stuff. So there will be tons of coverage on the Twitters from us and on the main site. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. MIZ.
See you.
ZOU.
Oh my God. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.